there's an inevitable visitor that each of us must host at the end of our lives. A visitor we all share, regardless of our status, wealth, or achievements. This visitor is death, the grand equalizer. How do we perceive this undeniable, inescapable truth? For many, it's a subject shrouded in fear and uncertainty, something to be pushed to the back of our minds. But what if we brought it to the forefront, engaging with it not in fear, but in curiosity and contemplation? Welcome to a conversation about mortality, a dialogue with death from philosophical perspectives. Throughout history, philosophers have grappled with the concept of death, presenting interpretations that may enlighten our understanding, and perhaps even soothe our fears. The ancient Greeks, for instance, had an interesting perspective. Epicurus, the Greek philosopher, claimed, "Death does not concern us, because as long as we exist, death is not here, and once it does come, we no longer exist." A profound thought, isn't it? He argues that we shouldn't fear something that, by its nature, we will never experience. Contrast this with the perspective of existentialists like Jean-Paul Sartre, who viewed death as a culmination of life's absurdity. For him, the randomness of death mirrored the randomness of life. Yet, it was in accepting this absurdity that one could find freedom and authenticity. And then there are philosophies that present death as not an end, but a transition. The concept of rebirth in Buddhism, for instance, views death as just another phase in the cyclical nature of existence. This notion changes the way we perceive death, doesn't it? Then there's the Stoic perspective on death. Stoicism, a philosophy that has seen a revival in recent years, teaches us to remain indifferent to things beyond our control. And death certainly falls into that category. As the Stoic philosopher, Seneca, once said, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a living man." But perhaps the most significant philosophical contribution comes from thinking about what death really means for the living. The knowledge that our time is finite can drastically shift our priorities and values. This thought isn't meant to induce existential dread, but rather a sense of urgency, a motivation to truly live. As philosopher Martin Heidegger suggests, an authentic life is one where the individual is conscious of their potential non-existence, their mortality. These philosophical perspectives are not here to provide definitive answers, but to prompt reflections, to encourage us to question, to explore, to debate. Because it's in this exploration that we may find our own personal truths, our own way of making peace with this inevitable part of life. So let's take a moment to ponder. How does acknowledging our mortality change the way we live? Does it make our disputes seem petty, our grudges insignificant? Does it inspire us to love more deeply, live more fully, and perhaps leave a legacy that outlives our physical selves? And what about the way we perceive the deaths of others? How can philosophy help us navigate our grief? Can these contemplations help us find solace, acceptance, or even a sense of continuity amidst the loss? While death might seem like a grim topic, discussing it doesn't have to be morose or terrifying. Instead, it can be an invitation to live more authentically, more intentionally. It's a reminder that every tick of the clock is a moment of life that will never return, nudging us to make the most of the now. This dialogue with death isn't meant to induce fear, but to provoke thought. It's a reminder that understanding death is a part of understanding life. As the poet Rainer Maria Rilke once said, "Death is our friend precisely because it brings us into absolute and passionate presence with all that is here, that is natural, that is love." In conclusion, death, like life, is a journey. It's a chapter in the story of our existence, an act in the drama of the universe. And by engaging with it philosophically, we can learn to appreciate it as a part of our existence, rather than fearing it as the end. So let's continue these dialogues with death. Let's engage with our mortality, not with fear and evasion, but with curiosity and courage. For in understanding death, we may just find a deeper, richer understanding of life. So let's not shy away from these conversations. After all, they are conversations about life, about us, about our shared human experience.